When I decided to add a biplane to my fleet, the Aeroworks 50cc Pitts Python went right to the head of the class. I like how Aeroworks planes are built and the completeness of their kits, and the Pitts turned out to be no different. The Pitts arrived in a normal double boxing, and everything was packed in bubble wrap. I did have to iron out a few wrinkles, but that's just a fact of life as long as temperature changes. The Pitts has lots of big control services, and I didn't want to hear about anything stalling, so I put in a set of high-tech 7954 high-voltage servos that have a little over 400 inch ounces each. You do have to pull a servo wire through the wing, but they leave a string in there for you, and that turns out to be a pretty easy project. Aeroworks knows that we're not going to be gentle with a plane like the Pitts, so they include these double steel control horns. They even pre-drill the holes for you so you get them in the right place. We do have to epoxy the tail feathers in place, but if you put the lower wing on, it's easy to locate them properly, and I had this done by the end of the first day, along with installing most of the control horns and servos. I wanted to be sure that everything got enough electrical power and got it all the time, so I added this SmartFly Power Expander Sport Plus that includes a fiber optic ignition kill system. This outfit also has a system that automatically isolates a battery that might go bad without affecting the other battery so you can land the plane. Because of all the power these servos have, I added the Hanger 9 aluminum control arms so you get a little more throw and more strength. And with the large center bolt plus the 2 pinch bolts, this arm isn't going to slip or fall off either. Battery power is turned on and off through a pair of ultra switches, also from SmartFly. Aeroworks gives you this ridiculously simple throw gauge, but as long as gravity stays in effect, this thing works perfect every time. If you can't set your throws up perfectly with this gauge, you just aren't trying. Remember when we used to have to lay a plane on its side to set the rudder? Not with this one. Just slide it into place and tape these little arms down, and you're ready to use it. With the plane on the floor, you can set the rudder deflection without goofing around with anything else. The upper wing mounts stay in place for transport and make installing the top wing at the field a lot easier. The canopy is also installed at the factory, and that saves you a lot of messing around because these can be a problem to get installed right. And this is where I point out how great the graphics look that I got from B&E Graphics. These folks do a great job and make me look really cool before I even take off. The tail feather flying wires are functional and come already made up. You just screw them onto the surfaces and tighten them up a little bit. I put a DLE 60 twin in this plane, and these are the stock pit style mufflers. The down tubes are long enough right out of the box so I don't have to add extensions. I was kind of hoping the cylinder heads would hang out both sides of the cowl, but just the plugs. Aeroworks gives you a nice looking bezel that goes in this opening in the front of the cowl, but I'm going to leave it open for now to make sure the motor stays cool during break-in. Installing the DLE Twin 60 on the Pitts was surprisingly easy, in part because of something I found in the kit that I didn't expect. The standoffs that came with the motor was going to make it too long for the cowl, but Aeroworks puts a bag of these spacers in with the kit, and that made installing this motor simple. The front of the mufflers are beveled to give you more clearance in the cowl. I've had mufflers loosen up in the past until a friend of mine told me to quit using the gaskets. I use just this Permatex exhaust sealer according to the label directions, and my mufflers have never loosened up since. I'd like to tell you that this is the maiden flight, but I actually did that the day before the cameraman came back. This is like Flight 7 on this plane, but it is very stable and was stable right from the start. I always do some approaches or touch and goes with a new plane in the first flight just in case I need to get it back on the ground, and I was shocked at how easily the Pitts lands. And all that stability naturally made me a little braver than I probably should be, and we tried pointing this thing up and hovering it. Now I'm an official D.5 pilot and pretty much suck at hovering, but in my first attempts I was actually getting it to torque roll a time or two. Using rudder is a good thing with this airplane, but you want to be careful about using too much because it will snap over on its back if you get carried away. During the test flights I was also happy to see that the DLE Twin 60 pulls this plane around just fine. I have a Vest 24B prop on it, and the plane seems to like it. I also discovered that combination moves this plane right along, and then you get to see that this thing's got a whole bunch of ailerons in it. I'm experimenting with some dual rate settings to try and get the ailerons from overpowering the rudder and elevator in some maneuvers. There's another reason some of you might want to slow the ailerons down a little bit. Yeah, that surprised me too. But even with all that aileron, the Pitts remains easy to land. This plane has a great flight envelope whether you're going fast or slow, or just goofing around. Despite its size, this plane weighs 17.5 pounds at everything but gas, and I think that's part of why it does things like hover easy enough for me to actually get away with a little bit of that. I know I should have cut this part out, but here it is anyway. I'd just been trying some lower rates and decided to do a touch and go. Then on takeoff, I decided to do my snap roll and almost didn't have enough. But it made it around and we saved it. And this is the next pass with the dual rate switch in the right place. Nothing to it. I also found that if I fly knife edge at the right wing up, there's not a whole lot of coupling to stick out of it. If you like the idea of having a giant scale biplane, you need to check out the Aeroworks 50cc Pitts Python. This is a really nice looking airplane. It's easy to build, it's easy to fly, and it'll do just about anything, even if I can't do it myself. But no matter how you want to fly it, there's just nothing else that looks any better in the air than a biplane.